When we have a nation that's founded on the right to life, like our great country, and I love our country, and we love our country, but when we have a nation that's founded on the right to life, like the Declaration of Independence states so clearly, we're given, endowed by our Creator with these rights, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Life comes first. Consider that for a moment, the creed of human rights that we stand by, that nations and the United Nations claims to stand for, it has to start with the right to life. And if the most vulnerable member of society is denied the most fundamental right, you have the potential for a human rights crisis of the most epic proportions. And that's what we're seeing in the United States today. And this is the beginning of the end of democracy. If people just knew, if the girls at UCLA just understood that this organization is not pro-women like they claim to be, that this is truly not pro-choice, but instead that this is going against the child in the most vulnerable form, but also against the woman. In the objectification of the child, they've also objectified the woman. And that's the way that evil is. Theologically, evil will go all the way to hell. Evil is not satisfied with hurting or killing one soul. It wants all souls. It wants total destruction of anything that is good. And so attacking the child, attacking that abortion is not good enough for evil. It's not good enough for Satan. He wants the abuse to continue for the woman. He wants a cycle of abuse. He wants the woman back in there for another abortion. And Planned Parenthood is happy to promote it, because part of their ideology is not only that abortion is somehow choice and okay, and even a good thing, but also that there should be a sick code, what I call a sick code of confidentiality or secrecy around abuse. That human sexuality is not the way that we understand it to be, but instead that sex with anyone, anywhere, anytime, for any reason, that's just choice. That's a matter of flexing the human muscle and doing whatever you want. And then if there's consequences, come to Planned Parenthood for an abortion. And that's the system they've set up for our young people, and that's when they're going into our schools and teaching children as young as in kindergarten to experiment sexually and develop sexual patterns of behavior that are only going to harm them in the long run. And that's part of their plan. And when I said at the beginning of this talk, Planned Parenthood is the most evil organization in human history, I'm saying that because, one, they've killed more people than any other single organization, politically, and then by actually killing themselves. And in the United States alone, it's over 55 million. But they've been architects behind some of the abortion practices in places like India and China, where they've actually been part of the architects behind sex-selective abortion. And I'm going to show a video here in just a moment to show some of that investigation we've done recently. But they're also going to our young people and twisting their understanding of sexuality to create the climate for abortion. And that's ultimately what we're seeing in our country today. And some of the favorite promoters of sexology that Planned Parenthood likes to promote is Alfred Kinsey. Kinsey and sexology, and he was a very twisted man, but long story short, is anyone familiar with Kinsey? Something to look up. It's really horrific, but his sexology and his understanding of sexuality is actually in our sex ed curriculum in many of our schools that Planned Parenthood has helped to engineer, and that is being pushed on our young people. And part of that is a misunderstanding of course, human sexuality and what is ultimately creating a climate for abuse. That adult-child sexual relationships are not a big deal. This was a Kinseyan idea that they're not a big deal. And so Planned Parenthood, I'm getting way detailed here, but the long story short is Planned Parenthood, when they see sexual abuse, they don't consider the abuse victim. They consider her need for an abortion, and that's what they think the solution to her problem is. And so after that first investigation, we started action. When I started as a teenager with some friends, it was really just a youth education initiative to say, okay, we know that there's Planned Parenthood in our community. We know that abortion is happening in the schools. We know that abortion is happening, in the church. In fact, the abortion rate is almost the same in the church as it is in the secular world, and that's for both Protestants and the Catholic. And so, I thought if we could just reach other Christian youth with the truth, that's a good, easy place to start in the youth groups in Christian schools. And so we started by doing pro-life presentations and, knocking down doors for youth pastors, trying to get them to give us permission, frankly, to talk about abortion at youth group. because abortion is very controversial, and a lot of them didn't even want to talk about it in the church. In these houses of worship in the Protestant community. I know that they're called houses of worship. I'm among Catholics now. The church is the church, and Protestants have houses of worship. But in these houses of worship, that they didn't even want to talk about abortion. They didn't even want to address it. And so all of this, it was just for me, it was the beginning of what can we do beyond this. Start where you are, start in your community, and then what can we do beyond this? And so at UCLA, I got to school, I realized very quickly this is not a pro-life, the environment there was very pro-abortion. There was a hookup culture at the school, there was a lot of promiscuity, girls were getting pregnant, but there were no pregnant girls on campus. And it was just, it was amazing for me to see that girls were getting pregnant, but what happened to them? And I quickly discovered, I did my first mini investigation of my health center. I posed as myself, and I just walked in and I said, hey, I think I'm pregnant. Can I talk to the nurse here? And the head nurse at UCLA sat me down and told me that UCLA didn't support women who were pregnant or help them necessarily, but that there were 2 abortionists that I could go see at the UCLA Medical Center, and that they could get the state of California to pay for my abortion, even though I was insured by my parents, so that it wouldn't show up in their insurance. I mean, this was UCLA's advice to me as who they thought was a pregnant student. And when I heard that advice, I thought, first of all, where is the empowerment of the woman in this? It was completely against empowerment of me. It was, you have a choice and it's abortion, basically. It's no choice, truly, it's abortion. But then I also thought, if this is what you...
What will you do to stem the tide, to turn things around? As a minister, as a preacher, as a priest, or anyone out in regular society, how can you help educate people to turn people around towards the pro-life, to eliminate the evil, to demonstrate why you need to protect the marital bed until marriage, the benefits?